What's happening, people? It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown, for episode number 110 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast, man. Got a great show in store for you guys. As always, you know who it is. I've got the main man with me here, my father. For those of you that didn't know, some people actually didn't know that you were my biological dad. They were like, oh, is that actually your dad? I said, yeah, can't you tell? No, that's my dad, man. So yeah, shout out to my
I'm
dad.
going to take that as a compliment. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I think that's how it's intended, right? I hope so. Anyway.
Well, we'll have to find out, I guess, when the comment this video. But yeah, let everyone know. Obviously, this is my father, so shout out to my father here. Joins me every week. Good to have you here, man. We got a lot to talk about today.
Yep, we have indeed, and I can't wait because I feel like you're gonna. I feel like I'm gonna have to put on my defense lawyer caper. You know what I mean? And try
I
and
think you, I
to
think you
do
might
my
have to. I think
yeah.
you have to, man. We got a football comment here from Himanshu. Well, since he's the only one here at the moment, we'll let him read that one out. But he's a Chelsea fan at the moment. He said he's loving life. Liverpool getting cooked by Tom Bowley, and they
Hey, you
are.
know what? I did a watch along on DR Sports yesterday. Shout out to everybody who watched. I think you might have contributed. So
Probably was there. He is on there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I've got to say, man, I was quite impressed by Chelsea. They did play well. In
Mm.
fact, I was impressed by both teams, to be honest. But I think Chelsea overall were the better side in a very well contested game. And it's looking good for the season ahead because I'm not one of those myopic Arsenal fans that want Arsenal to be the best and everyone else to be crap. I quite like when the Premier League brand stands out and there's good players from all different teams and they're playing good football. I think it's good for the game. I
Well,
think it's
I think you might be referring to the fact that they're getting Lavia as well now. He chose
yeah,
Chelsea
yeah,
over
they're
Liverpool.
getting Lavia, they're getting Caicedo. I mean, listen, you could question the way they're able to get these players, and some people will no doubt say as well that they're just throwing money at it the way City are. And yes, I do get some of that. But at the end of the day, man, as long as they're not breaking rules, then they can do what they can do. It's up to teams like us to stop them from,
Yeah.
what I mean, on the pitch. And let's be honest, last year, Chelsea spent a lot more money than Arsenal, and we still were much better than them in the Premier League. I mean, we finished second to their 12th. So it just goes to show it's not always about money. You know what I mean? So
For
it is
sure.
what it is. But at the same time, I do appreciate that. Listen, I'm a man I love sport. I grew up watching sport, playing sport, participating in it all my life, watching it all my life. I love sport.
Laurie's still
As long
there.
as they're doing it,
You froze for a
you
minute
there?
there. Let's not talk about football the whole show, but carry on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, well, it's a general point. I'm just saying that I love the whole aspect of sport and taking part and competing. But yeah, but anyway,
You froze for a little bit there, but we got you back now. We got you back anyway. Um,
okay.
Francisco says here, okay, yeah, he's back. Himanshu says that he's back. So yeah, I got you back. I got you back. Francisco says here, word up, brother. Since you're talking football, what did you think of the Women's World Cup semis?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
was that today? Like
No,
who went in?
that's coming up. The
Yeah,
World
we've
Cup,
got the
the
coming up, right?
semi-final stages this week.
Mm.
Again, we're covering it on DR Sports. I think it's England versus Australia or Australia versus England, and Sweden versus who's the other country? Sweden versus Spain.
Okay,
So the
okay.
win of those two semi-finals will play in the final. But I think England have got a good chance of getting through to the final. Mm.
Okay, let's talk boxing anyway, as Himanshu's saying here. Before we get into it today, obviously, the topic of discussion is obviously going to be about the feedback from AJ's fight. Of course, we got a lot to talk about there. You see the title of the podcast. It says here, Laurie makes the case for Joshua over Wilder. So we've got a lot to discuss on that. But before we do, as we always, as is always going to be the case going forward now, I've got another Mythical Monday for you to quickly run through and give me your thoughts on that. Another good fantasy matchup. So if we could summarize it briefly here, who you got in this particular fight, I think it's a very good one as well. So
Yeah, another good one. Another good one.
let's take a look at this one right here. James DeGale versus David Benavidez at super middleweight, prime for prime. Who have you got in that and why?
Right. Right. So this time I was a bit prepared because last week when you hit
Oh,
me
did
with
you
it,
see that? Did you see this one?
yeah,
You
yeah,
wanted
yeah, yeah.
prepared. I wanted it to take you by surprise, but that's
Well, I
fine.
didn't watch all of your show, but I did know that it was the Gail Benavides, which again, I've got to give you credit. That's another good one you come up with. I must say, after giving it much thought, because I'm a big fan of both, I'm going to have to lean towards Benavides.
Mm.
And the reason for that being is that Benavides, massive for super middleweight, big, strong guy, throws a lot of punches. And how I see that one panning out, hypothetically, is that the Gale would probably have won the early rounds, right? But I think that Benavides would start to walk him down after about rounds 8, 9, and 10. And I think after the Gale had built up a lead, I think that Benavides would walk him down on the stretch and probably win a close points decision.
Yeah,
I'm going for
I've got.
Benavides, but it would be a very competitive fight.
I picked Benavides in my video as well, based on those same reasons. I think that the Gale would have got off to a good start, but Benavides tends to wear you down the stretch. James DeGale has, had a few stamina issues down the stretch, particularly against Badu Jack. That's one example. Caleb Truex, he got worn down and beaten up in the. I know he was out of his prime then, but yeah, looking at that Badu Jack fight and how Benavides is, I think that the ability James DeGale had would have definitely caused him problems, but yeah,
And his southpaw stance as well.
he can get drawn into a war, and we've seen that numerous times. I just think that favors Benavides massively. But all hypothetical, all mythical.
Yeah.
So yeah, big up to everyone in the chat, man. Don't forget to hit the like button and share the video. Let people know you're watching. Tune into the show. Himanshu says here, wait, Daryl, is Laurie really your dad, or are you saying it just for bad? No, he's really my dad, man. Like, right, he's really is my dad. Like for real, biological. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's my dad, bro. That is my dad. Father and son podcast right here. So big
Lyle
up to,
Senior and Lyle Junior.
for sure. So yeah, that's my pups right there, man. But listen, let's get straight into it, man.
Let's go.
Let's see what my dad has to say on this one. Anthony Joshua will beat Deontay Wilder. And let me just say this, yeah. I was quite surprised when I saw you send me this message first thing the next morning, particularly after the fight, because it was another timid performance from AJ. I have to be honest. Looked like he was scared to get hit for me. Obviously we can't really compare the fight between Wilder and Helenius to AJ and Helenius if we're being fair. So I'm not really going to do it that much, but I don't know where you're getting the confidence from that AJ will defeat Wilder based on those last few performances that we've seen.
First of all, I want to pick you up on a couple of things. First one being, I just hope that Anthony Joshua's back is okay, because as he said, he's been carrying.
That was a bit. That was a bit. That was a bit.
Well, the man's got a bad back, man. You know what I mean? That's probably one of the reasons for his subpar performance. He carried a back
No
in.
one laughed at that. No one laughed at that joke, When he said, no one really laughed at it. Shout out AJ, man.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was a bit.
AJ, man. And secondly, man, I've got to pick you up on that when you said he was scared to get here. I think that's a real exaggeration, bro. Yes, you can say it's tentative. Well, no, I think you're exaggerating it, bro. Listen, you could say he was tentative. I'll give you that. Because listen, very few fighters want to get hit, especially heavyweights. Because as I was saying to a couple of people over the weekend, you're talking about guys that Helenius, for example, 6'8" tall, 250 pounds plus, big, massive guy, right? And he's got massive hands, and he's got those hands in, wraps, in 10-ounce gloves. These guys carry serious power, man. When they hit you, it ain't no joke. Even a jab, you saw AJ's face. Couple jabs can touch you up like that. You know what I mean? These guys carry extreme power. That is why everybody likes watching heavyweight boxing, because you know that if one or the other connects properly, there's a good chance that they're either going to get hurt, wobbled, go down, or get knocked out. And that is, let's face it, the appeal of heavyweight boxing. It's not so much the skills that you're going to see and the fancy footwork and the combination punching. Nah, with heavyweights, it's good night. You know what I mean? That's what they bring to the table. That's why people love watching heavyweight. Anyway, that being said, no one likes to get hit unless you're a little bit funny upstairs. And I just think that AJ defensively, and I know it sounds a little bit at odds because his face was a little busted up in there, but I think he was trying to work on certain things, and I thought he tightened up his guard a lot better. I thought his footwork was better in this fight, and I think he was a bit circumspect to the point where you could say he was a bit tentative. I do get that. He's not above criticism. The performance was up until the knockout. You could say subpar, or you could say it was okay, with nothing special. But to say that he's scared of getting hit, come on. I think that's you sound like Simon Jordan when you say stuff
Listen, what my point is that, but I'll take you up on what you said as well. So, but yeah, to me, the reason why I said that was because there was plenty of times throughout that fight where he was not stepping in with his
Yep.
punches. He was throwing from the outside. Didn't look like he liked what was coming back. You said he had a high guard, but his face was pretty busted up at the end of that fight. He had a bloody nose, like lump. Eye was a bit, swollen. So how good was that high guard that you said he was using in that fight? And I just think of it like, Wilder has his limitations, as we know. Do you know what I mean? If the consensus seems to be that if you can get him out of the first, and this is really based off the last couple of fights, I would say, with Fury. But the consensus seems to be if you're going to beat him, is to try and get out of those early rounds with Wilder, and you'll see his stamina dip. Now, AJ has shown improvement in terms of his technique. We can admit that. He's working on stuff. You can see that. But I just don't think he's not going to have the time to be in there thinking on his feet like, okay, let me try this, let me do this. He's going in there with Wilder now, when really he could have had another fight or two, if I'm being honest. But he's looking to go in there now with him. And I just think Wilder's going to smell the not fear, because I'm not saying he's scared of Wilder, but he's going to smell the apprehension. He's going to feel it. And I just feel that, yes, there is a danger of, a shot coming back and knocking Wilder out. But this AJ that I saw doesn't fill me with confidence of beating Wilder. And that high guard that you said, his face was pretty bruised up after the fight,
Yeah,
man.
he got hit, but as they say in boxing, it's a bit like swimming. If you go in the water, you're going to get wet. So he probably got hit a bit too much than he would have liked to have done. But listen, Hellenius is no bum, you know what I mean? And I don't like to use the term bum anyway in boxing. I think it's disrespectful to the fighters who, are putting their lives on the line for our entertainment to call them bums. You wouldn't get any other sport treat their combatants like that or their contestants like that. So I don't like to use that word, but you know my drift. I don't think Hellenius is a bad fighter. I think he's a very decent heavyweight. He was coming off a win the week before, so he was battle ready and fit. And I thought he was actually a better opponent for Wilder than Dillian is. You know what I mean? I think that Hellenius probably represented a sterner test for Joshua than Dillian would have done. And I mean, you talk about punching and punch resistance and stuff like that. Dillian's punch resistance is pretty much non-existent at this rate. He's a lot shorter than Wilder. So if you look at the two of them, if you're looking at Hellenius versus Dillian as an opponent for Joshua, I actually think Hellenius represents a sterner test. I mean, the only reason why so many people were negative towards Hellenius was, let's be honest, is because of what Wilder did to him. Wilder, as we now know, knocked him out in a round. Pretty much the first punch that Wilder landed. But as I said to you on the show last week, Wilder is capable of doing that to most guys, if not everyone. Even you saw what happened when he connected squarely on the chin of Tyson Fury. In that first fight, he knocked Fury out. He didn't get it. The referee chose to count for longer than 10 seconds, but he actually knocked Fury out. So you're talking about a man that can level anyone in the heavyweight division. That being said, we all know Deontay Wilder's limitations, of which there are a number. First one being he's not a very good boxer. Doesn't even try to be, doesn't even pretend to be. And I also think he's had a long career now. He's had some bad beatings, namely at the hands of Tyson Fury. He's also had other hard nights, the Luis Ortiz fights. I just think that physically he's not really there right now to the way he was years ago. You could say that about AJ, but you could equally say the same thing about Wilder. And I don't think he has the legs. I saw his legs in the last two fights against Fury, and even in the fight against Hellenius, he was moving around the ring, man. His legs didn't look steady. And what I'm saying is, right, and I know a lot of people disagree, and you know what I mean, they're going to call me all sorts, but I just think that if AJ, this is the second fight with Derek James, very good trainer who I rate highly. If they can come up with a good game plan and, you know what I mean, be tactically aware and defensively responsible, tuck up, not
If
take too many clean shots. Yeah, of course it's a if. But I think that there will be opportunities there that present themselves. And if AJ can be smart, I think he's got a very good chance of knocking Wilder out. Let's face it, this fight is not going to go points. Either one of them are going to get knocked out. But I do think that AJ, listen, even you have got to concede, AJ is by far the better boxer of the two, by far, right?
by far, yeah, yeah, by
And I
far.
think that even though he doesn't punch as much as hard as Wilder does, he is a pretty heavy-handed guy, as we saw on Saturday night. When he
I
catches
agree.
guys, he can get them out of there. So you're not going to
I,
tell me if AJ lands that same shot on Elanius, now if he lands that same shot he landed on Elanius that he lands on Wilder, it's good night Wilder. I'm telling you now, he's gone. He's out of there.
okay, but what makes you think that Wilder will not land that shot first? It's if AJ lands on. From what I'm seeing, it looks to me like Wilder's more likely to land that shot on AJ first. From what I'm
Yeah,
seeing.
listen, you could well be right about that. In fact, I would go as far as to say that of the two of them, Wilder will be the favourite, and I would not argue with that. You know what I mean? Because we know that Wilder is he is quicker. He's a bit more explosive than AJ, right? However, I just think that if AJ can avoid the early onslaught, take him into deep rounds, I think he can drown him. I really do. I'm, I really think that he has a good chance of beating Deontay Wilder. I just think he's got to get the tactics right. Obviously, he's got to roll the dice a little bit because one of the things, and you touched on it earlier, Darryl, when you said when he fought Elanius on Saturday, there were openings there that he wasn't taking advantage of. So, for example, when I did the watch along on DR Sports on Saturday, I kept imploring AJ. I said, listen, after the first couple of rounds, you've downloaded the information that you need to know about this guy. You're starting to back him up. Because to be fair to Elanius, he came out and he actually held the center of the ring for the first round. I thought he won the first round. He was trying to establish his jab. But after a couple of rounds, AJ was the one taking the initiative, owning the real estate. He was backing Elanius up, not exclusively, but there were a number of times when he backed him up to the ropes. And I'm saying throw the double jab and come over the top with the right hand because Elanius was carrying his hands low, and we all know Helenius' defense is not great. To me, that combination was there for him all night, and it took him until round 7 for him to land it. And when he did land it, what happened? Got him out of there. And if you
Okay,
actually
was that was
watch the
that
watch
down
along
to
that we did,
Hellenius? Was part of that down to Hellenius getting tired from the sixth
yeah,
round
it
on?
could well have
He
been. But then,
feel like he
but
was lagging after the sixth round.
yeah, but you will find with a lot of fighters that once they start to tire a little bit, their form goes, which is why I say with AJ, the first 2 or 3 rounds with Wilder, he's got to be cognizant of what Wilder's going to be throwing at him. He's got to have that high guard up. He's got to be defensively responsible. But if you could draw the sting from Wilder, the same openings that Elanius presented, Wilder will present them the same way. The same way that AJ was able to back up Elanius is the same way he'll be able to back Wilder. Because Wilder is quite easily backed up, to be honest. And
What I was
I'm telling you now, that double jab right hand over the top will work just as well with Wilder as it worked with Helenius. And if AJ lands that shot, I'm telling you now, Wilder is out of there. He's gone.
shout out to Ian Harvey, Rare Cockney Governor. Shout out to all you guys in the chat, man. I'll see you all. Listen, for me, it really does rest on if AJ can make it out of those first 3 or 4 rounds. I just think that's going to be hell for him, those first few rounds, because we know what Wilder can do when he's fresh and, and the fact that I think that he can, like I said, he'll be able to feel the energy and he'll feel like I can get this guy. I know his confidence is not right all the way there, 100%. I know that. Let me feed off that. And to think that Wilder won't, the way how AJ looked to me on Saturday night, he looked like he was a bit gun shy still. Yes, he did get the one punch knockout win, but up until then, the crowd were booing after round three. You could see again after the fight, mentally it appeared to affect AJ. He was doing things and saying things that, like was a bit dodgy to me. But look, going into this Wilder fight, I'll give you this: he will be extra switched on, and he'll know
Absolutely,
that's
absolutely.
coming back. And for me, if he does get out of those early rounds, then yeah, the momentum really swings in his favor if he can get out of those early rounds with Wilder. But it's a massive if, because I just feel that Wilder is going to land something. And when he does land the first shot, it's how AJ takes it. And most people can't take it. Wilder has been outboxed, by the way, by guys that were nowhere near as good as him, but they had better boxing ability. And we've seen what's happened. He's ended up knocking them out. And AJ, could he get into a pattern where he's outboxing Wilder and then he gets into round 4 or 5 and, suddenly he's getting a bit confident and then like he thinks, yeah, maybe now I can step in with the right hand. He does that, bang. All of a
Yeah,
sudden,
but,
we're talking.
here's the difference. You're right. Wilder's been outboxed several times. I can remember Gerald Washington outboxing Wilder. I can remember Artur Spilica winning pretty much all the rounds, right?
Mm.
Luis Ortiz twice outboxing Wilder. You know what I mean? You can name numerous guys that have been outboxing Wilder, right? Here's the
What happened?
difference. Here's the difference between those guys and AJ. They just didn't have the punching power to bring it home. Whereas AJ does. I mean, Luis Ortiz can punch, so I'm not gonna, But then, even then, you saw what he did to Wilder in that first fight. He nearly stopped him in that 8th round. In fact, some people were saying that Wilder got a bit of a pass from the referee in that fight. If you go back and look at that fight, man, Ortiz had him out of there, bro. Spilica, Gerald Washington, a number of other guys have had Wilder outboxed, looking ungainly, uncomfortable, ragged. And I'm saying to you that the difference between those guys and AJ is that AJ has the punch to finish the job off, whereas those guys didn't. And to be fair to Wilder, he does have heart. He will stay in there. But I seriously think, man, that if AJ lands the shots on him, he's capable of getting him out of there. I've got absolutely no doubt in thinking that. I just think that the game plan has to be right. Yes, AJ will have to be sturdy on the night. He will have to be in the best condition he's ever been in, because that is part of taking punishment as well, making sure you're in great shape. And it may well be that he might even have to get off the floor or, recover from a serious punch he gets caught with that may, wobble his legs or whatever. But I say, as long as he's in there, as long as he can, see off that early onslaught, to me, the fight is his. And I've said this for a while, I'm not just, Daryl, me and you have spoken about this fight before. So what I'm
Mm.
saying to you is not anything new. But I am saying it. I'm repeating it. I'm not going too much on that fight on Saturday. Well, that's what people tend to do. They always look at people's previous fights and say, oh, you got no chance against him because you could barely beat this one. You know what I mean? That is a mistake that a lot of people in boxing always make. They call it you're only as good as your last fight. That's what people tend to look at. And they use that as a barometer to judge everyone. But you've got to be very careful of doing that because, boxing is a unique sport. Styles make fights.
Well, let's look at some comments here. Harvey says if AJ gets the tactics right, he can 100% beat him. Although I don't have the confidence he gets those tactics right. Wilder in 4 rounds. London Brixton, big up. He says styles make fights. Francisco says here he's clearly not the AJ of old. Circumspect is accurate. That should be his moniker. He should put that on his trunks. Yes, he has a good shot. Yeah, he has a good shot of boxing his way to a win over Wilder. Yeah, I'm just not confident he gets out of those early rounds, like Harvey's saying. He can do it, and you've said that. If he gets out of those rounds, yes, the momentum swings massively in AJ's favor. The problem is, I don't think he gets out of those rounds. That's the issue. That's the problem. Yeah, if he gets past those 4 or 5 rounds, he can definitely beat Wilder. But it's the fact that what's going to happen in those first 4 rounds, man.
Yeah,
Where
or listen, maybe he could chin Wilder in 3 rounds. Maybe they could have a shootout and he just, you know what I mean? He just, because listen, I'm telling you now, man, Deontay Wilder's boxing skills are not very good. I'm just keeping it 100. They're not. We're talking about a guy, right, that has never really learned his trade in terms of boxing skill because deep down, He will never admit this publicly, but well, actually, he kind of has. Wilder kind of has said that he doesn't need to be very good at boxing. Remember, you used to say, what was that?
He
What
said
was
you
that
could be
phrase he used to use? I only need to get it right once.
yeah, and he's right. And he's right though, man.
Yeah, so what happened to that when he fought Fury then?
Well, he weren't perfect that night. You know what I mean?
Well, it goes to show, doesn't it?
But
You know?
Fury approached that in a different way. He bullied he stayed close to Wilder. He bullied him. He leaned on him. AJ's not going to do that. AJ's
No,
going to try.
yeah, but what I'm
That's the
saying is
problem.
AJ doesn't have to do that. AJ doesn't have to do that. I'm saying that AJ needs to draw the sting. So, in other words, and I know, listen, I know it's easier said than done. I'm, you know what I mean? We all know that. But what I'm saying is, you know what this man is going to bring. There's not going to be any surprises when he fights Wilder. You know it's the right hand you got to worry about. He barely. Have you ever seen Deontay Wilder hurt anyone with a left hook? I've never. Actually, I have, actually. Fury. Yes, I have. But you know what I mean? He's predominantly a right hand puncher. So that is going to be his main threat. He doesn't even use the jab that much to set the punches up, right? The right hand is almost exclusively what he's going to throw. And I don't anticipate him doing that much different. He may say he's going to do it before, but you know, come fight night, when the lights are on, he's going to be looking for that right hand from the minute the bell goes. There are ways that you can try and nullify that right hand. So, for example, move to your right to, you know what I mean? Move away from his right hand. Obviously, the high guard, obviously not giving him too much leverage on the shot, trying to get close to him and stuff like that. Or use your own jab and catch and shoot. So there are ways that you can try and nullify the right hand. And I'm saying if AJ gets himself into tremendous condition, which I think that's guaranteed he's going to do that. We all know how hard he works. If he listens to his trainer and they have a good game plan and he can stick to the tactics, especially early, I think he has an excellent chance because there will come that point when Wilder is going to become tired, right? Or have less energy, shall we say. I think his form will go out the window. I think the legs will start to look as they've done in recent fights where they look a little bit less than strong. And I think that is when AJ has his window of opportunity. And he can drive him to the ropes or he can counter with his own shots. I mean, AJ's got some very good power in that right hand. He's also got a very good uppercut. He's also got a very good left hook. He actually has more tools in his arsenal than Wilder does. I know some
Yeah,
people out there
there's no
might not
denying.
believe it. Yeah,
There's
but he
no, there's
does.
no, yeah, there's
Yeah.
no denying that.
So
Yeah,
I'm saying to you, if he can negotiate the early rounds without falling apart or without getting knocked out, the fight is his.
yeah. Well, I think you're. I don't know how like. Listen, it's a big if those first 4 rounds, man.
Yeah, of
You
course
kind
it
of
is. It
you're
is
saying
when
it in
you.
passing, like, yeah, if he can get like that's the real danger there. That's the real threat for me. Let me just
Yeah,
quickly shout
what
out
I'm
my
saying is
yeah,
I'm backing him to
one
do
sec, one
that.
sec. Let me just shout out DS here in the chat. He said, "Good evening, family. Good evening to you as well, bro." Harvey says here, AJ will try and outbox Wilder, and that's where he goes wrong. He needs to pull it on him from the opening round and get his hands going. But
No,
AJ will take
that
it
is
slow,
not what you
and
do.
that's where he'll get caught. That's what I've seen. That's
No,
what
but
I've
you know
seen.
what? With respect, Harvey, that is not the tactics you do when you fight Wilder. You don't go out there and say, yeah, I'm just going to engage him and all guns blaze. No, you don't do that. You don't. You draw the sting from him. You wait for your opportunity to present itself because, like I said, Wilder is not a good boxer. So he's going to give you opportunities. It's almost like that football team, innit, where they're great in attack, yeah? But they haven't got no good defense. So what you do as the opposing team, you soak up the attack and wait for your opportunities to counter. That is what AJ's got to do. All this going out there, no, he's got to go. No, that's if I'm his coach anyway, I wouldn't be telling him to do that. I would be telling him to keep a high guard, be defensively responsible. You know what I mean? Be on the lookout for the right hand primarily, but you know, obviously you've got to look out for the other shots too. But that is the main danger, the right hand. Be cognizant of that. Try to see it coming because that will help you take the punch too, right? And then when you get your opportunity, make the most of it. Yes, you can't be too tentative because this guy will present you with opportunities. When he does, try and take them. But like this guy says, you know, educated pressure. But this notion that you're going to go in there wider and just throw, let your hands go and not worry about what's coming back, in this so-called being, you know what I mean, brave and all that. No, that's not going to get the job done, man.
Let's see this comment here from DS. He puts here, I think Deontay Wilder will catch AJ at some point, but there's no guarantee it keeps him down. The chinny thing is exaggerated. AJ's fought and been caught by big punches like Povetkin and Vlad, and he hasn't been stopped.
You know what? That was a point I was going to make, you know. Actually, DS, you preempted what I was going to say. I was going to say that this moniker that AJ's got as being chinny is ill-founded because he's not. You know, okay, the Ruiz fight, he got knocked down 4 times, but he got caught with a temple shot, and it was a bad night for him. Yes, he got put down by Klitschko, but he's also been in the ring with some other big punchers, and they've not been able to put a dent in him. So, you know what I mean? He can take a shot. Does he take the best shot? Maybe not. But
Not
this
for me.
notion that he's chinny, I think it's a bit of a misnomer, to be honest.
But I don't think you have to be chinny to get knocked out by Wilder. He's got one of the most dangerous right hands I've ever seen. You know, so it's not necessarily you
And
being
he's also
chinny.
got one of the leakiest defenses I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think this is why it's a fascinating fight, really,
Mm.
because both you can make legitimate cases for both men being knocked out, and I think I did a poll on my
Oh,
Instagram.
so I'm starting to convince you now, man.
No. No, I still think Wilder, but what I was going to say, the majority of people on my Instagram and Twitter seem to believe, and obviously, like you said, the notion you're only as good as your last fight definitely plays a part here. But a lot of people were saying to me that they just can't see how this version of AJ would beat Wilder, and they previously said that they believed AJ would have beaten Wilder. So now they're doing a U-turn and saying this particular version of AJ that I'm seeing, I can't see him beating Wilder. But what I will say in AJ's defense, and you haven't touched on it, but you might have done afterwards, but Wilder has been inactive. He hasn't been in the ring for, it would have been over a year. He would have been in the ring against AJ by the time they do meet, which is December or January. He fought Hellenius in October of last year. So that would have been 14 months, 15 months. Before that Hellenius fight, he was out the ring for what, another year? And he's what, 37 years old? So when you put that into consideration and the fact AJ, even though he ain't been looking good, he has been active. Timing was something that Errol Spence and Frank Martin, and Errol Spence in particular, said let him down against Terence Crawford. He'd been out of the ring for a year. So timing is important, and Wilder relies on his timing. He doesn't have the boxing skills, as you said. So could that play a factor? The inactivity, the age, and the wear and tear? Because obviously, yeah, he did get beaten up by Fury a couple of times.
Yeah, like you said, he's not been active. And let's face it, when he fought Elenius, that was less than one round of action. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then you're going to ask him to go in there. At least, at the very least, AJ's been active. You know what I mean? He's had rounds, and that does count for something. You know what I mean? So, listen, man, AJ does have a few advantages. If this fight does take place in January, as we're all led to believe, I think AJ goes into that fight having some advantages. I also think as well that that decision he made to hook up with Derek James, I think that is an excellent choice of trainer. You know what I mean? I think Derek James is one of the best trainers in boxing. You've only got to look at his resume to see that. And I think that AJ going over to America, with the sparring that he'll get out there, with the change of environment, with the ability for him, because obviously in this country, you know what I mean, he's a very recognized figure. Over there, he'll just be able to just turn up at the gym, knuckle down and get on with it. He seems to be enjoying life out there, which is another thing that I think is going to work in his favour. Whereas you look at Wilder, he doesn't seem. Now, listen, I don't want to detract from the man, but he doesn't seem like he's the most dedicated to boxing. You know what I mean? He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to be in the gym
He's always in
constantly.
shape. He's always in great shape. I've never
Yeah,
seen.
but I don't think he's a real boxing man. He's not a student of the game, put it that way. He's pretty much said this on the record, you know what I mean? He's also talked openly about retiring several times, saying that he don't need boxing, this and that. So I'm looking at a guy that is not a student of the game, perhaps not the most dedicated. I'm not saying that he doesn't come into the ring in shape. He always does, to be fair to him. But is he the type of guy that's going to be learning his craft every single day when he's not got a fight coming up? I don't think he is. Anyway, I think that AJ has a very. I can understand why people like yourself and many others, let's be honest, I know I'm in a minority here, make Wilder not just a favourite, but a very strong favourite. I can understand that because, you look at AJ and, currently he's not in his best form. But I am seeing some green shoots of recovery there, man. I'm seeing some things there that I'm looking at. I'm thinking, yeah, you can see that he's been working on that with Derek James, and you see the connection they seem to have in the corner looks good. The fight
Mm.
on Saturday, you heard the dialogue between the two men, and it sounds like AJ respects him. And I think that all those things, man, do make a difference going into this fight with Wilder. I think he has
But
very.
what about the mental side of things? I mean, Wilder, like I said, seems to be someone that feeds off energy. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure that he would have looked at AJ's mental fragilities after the second Usyk fight. Some will look at after this fight as well, the way how he reacted, and it wasn't that bad of a reaction to me. It might have been an overreaction, but like what he was doing afterwards, and the interview, and then running straight out to the crowd, stuff like that, and you know, Wilder seems to me to someone that feeds off energy, and if he can smell, I'm not saying AJ's scared. I'm definitely not saying that. But if he can smell that there's a bit of a lack of confidence there, I think he's going to really try and play that to his advantage at the press conferences, at the fight itself. Try and like intimidate him, let him know about the right hand and what he's facing. Like, do you feel that plays a factor? Do you think AJ's too experienced for that? He's seen all of that. He's been in the game for a while now. He's in his 30s. So like, what?
I'll tell you what I
How much
get from all that.
how much does that play a part for you? That's what I'm trying to ask.
I'll tell you what I get from that is that Deontay Wilder, and he's been guilty of it in the past, can be going in there very arrogantly thinking that there's nothing AJ can do to stop him landing that right hand.
Mm.
You know what I mean? When you listen to Wilder talk, that is how the man talks. You listen to Wilder talk, he talks about this God given power. You guys have got to be perfect for 12 rounds. I've only got to be perfect for 1 second and it's all over. That speaks to a man that he doesn't believe that he needs to learn his craft. He just thinks that as long as I land my right hand and I've got 36 minutes to do so, it's all over. Now, okay, that may be true to a certain degree, but what if you don't like that land the right hand? Or what if the other guy lands the right hand first? This is why your boxing skills have always got to be on point.
Mm.
And face it, boxing is littered. Boxing history is littered with people who had big punchers who had that same mindset that Wilder has, which is all I need to go in there is land a big shot and it's all over. You saw David Haye do that. Remember when he fought Bellew? He was saying, listen, man, as soon as I land my big right-handed fight's all over, what happened? He underestimated David Bellew and he paid the price for it. Boxing history is littered with that. I remember when Tyson fought Holyfield, it was the same type of narrative. Oh, Tyson's going to kill him. And everyone was saying, yeah, but Holyfield experience, good boxer. Forget about that, man. As soon as Tyson lands, what happened? So I'm saying that, you know what I mean? Boxing history is littered with people who adopted that same mindset as Deontay Wilder. All I got to do is land a big shot and it's all over. And they came a cropper. And I'm saying that I'm backing AJ to pull the upset because I
Mm.
think going in, he will be the one that's more focused. He will be the one that'll be more working on game plans, tactics. You know what I mean? He's got the better coach as well. No disrespect to Malik Scott, but Derek James is an infinitely better trainer than Malik Scott. And I think that AJ has the size, the strength, the power, the boxing skills to pull it off. Yes, people are going to bring up the mental side of the game, but listen, they've got time to work on that. They have
Mm.
time to work on that. And I think going into that fight, man, my money's on AJ because I think he's got more tools.
Let's go through some. There's a lot of comments here. I want to read these out, man, because there's some great opinions in the chat. So shout out to everyone, man. I'll try and get through them all. Mohammed says here, Anthony Joshua beats Wilder. Age, inactivity, and all those beatdowns by Fury will cost him. Let's not forget about his chin and boxing skills. Ian says here, don't worry, Laurie. I'm in the minority as well. When AJ flattens Wilder, the minority will be vindicated. Big up BFV in the chat here, all the way over there from the States. He says here Joshua gets his clock cleaned. All facts that he says. London Brixton says if AJ rebuilds his confidence, I feel like he can beat Wilder. AJ has the better boxing IQ. So your opinion, Laurie, is getting on to the people here.
Don't
DS
say I
says
didn't tell you. When it
if
happens,
AJ
right, I want you to clip some of these points in here and play them back because a lot of people are going to have egg on their faces. I'm telling you now. Because I
DS
think
says
that,
here, DS says here, if AJ steps in and lands first, the fight is over. Spot on, Laurie. It's the same with McClellan against Ben. Great example.
that's right. That's right.
Great
That's
example.
another one. As I said, boxing history is littered with people who could punch, thinking that all they needed to do was go in there and land that punch. And to a certain extent, I kind of see where they're coming from because that's all they've ever had to rely on, and it's worked for them. And you know what they say, if it's not, what they say that phrase, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. So guys like Wilder have that mentality. I don't need to learn the nuances of boxing. All I need to do is land that right hand, and it's all over. And for the vast majority of times, until he came up against Fury, he was right. But I'm
It's,
saying,
it's it's the confidence for me, man. It's the confidence of if AJ was like I said, like the people on my Instagram everywhere said, back in the day they were picking AJ. But this version of AJ, like the one that I'm seeing, the one that doesn't appear to be that confident in the ring anymore, looked a bit gun shy, took a while to step in with that right hand. And this is not someone that, it was no disrespect, but Robert Elenis doesn't crack your top 15 at heavyweight, does he? Or does
no,
he? So like, this was a fight where we looked at like, yeah, let's get AJ's confidence up. This is a nice run out for him in terms of getting the knockout win that he needs to prepare himself for Wilder. And still, the fight had more questions than answers with regards to AJ and his performance. Do you not agree with that?
not totally, no, because listen, man, there was never any danger of him losing that fight, was it? He lost maybe 1 or 2 rounds of the 7. I think he lost, was it the first or second round I gave to Elenius? Elenius was competitive with a few of the others, but he didn't really win them. And listen, you talk about confidence, which is fair enough, but let me throw something back at you. Wilder's overconfidence. So, yes, AJ will be going in there and his confidence might not be at its optimum level, but I could easily argue that Wilder is overconfident and has shown that in the past. And again, I reference the fact that all he ever talks about is knocking people out, which means that he is just fixated on the knockout. Yeah, that's all he's fixated on. So that means if he doesn't knock the guy out, what's his other ways to win? And that's why you got to learn your craft in this game because you're not always going to knock everyone out, as Wilder found out when he fought Fury. So
Got some more comments here on the fight. BFE saying that this fight is late. I can't bring that comment up, but he's saying the fight is late. Harvey says here, I agree with Daryl. It's the confidence for me. If AJ has the mindset, with that comes the right game plan, then you have the win. JD says here, that was a replacement fight, not the fight he planned for. Yeah, that's true.
Right, let me ask you a question now, yeah? Let me ask you, and I want you to answer this honestly. What do you think is worse? Not being confident or being overconfident? Because I'll tell you something, right?
It's tough. That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. But I'll tell you something. When you're not quite confident, what does that force you to do? It forces you to be a little bit more watchful.
Alert,
it forces you to be a bit more alert. As long as your confidence is not shot to pieces. But if you're not quite as confident as the other guys, sometimes that can actually work in your favor because it might make you work that little bit harder in the gym. It might let you be a little bit more focused on the night, be a bit more alert, and force you to really focus and concentrate at the job in hand. Whereas if you're overconfident, you're not focused, you probably have not put the work in the gym the way you should have been. I mean, a lot of guys that show overconfidence, they come into the ring in great physical shape, but mentally, because they think the fight is already won, they're not quite there. So, yes, you are right to raise AJ's seeming lack of confidence, but I could equally say to you that Wilder in the past, certainly in the Fury fights, has shown overconfidence and he's paid for it. And I suspect that it's going to be the same thing with AJ because he's going to be gassed up. All these men saying, yeah, as soon as you land the right hand, Deontay, this guy's out of there, man. All you got to do is land the right hand. All of a sudden, he can't land the right. he's missing or he's not connecting properly or he's just out of range, all of a sudden, that big right hand that he's been relying on him is failing him. And all of a sudden, Joshua's confidence is suddenly picking up.
Mm.
So confidence is a two-way street. Yes, it's good to have confidence, but it's got to be at the optimum level. So sometimes a lot of people in sports, and it's not just boxing, you're overconfident, it can be just as bad for you.
Ian says here, hold on, Daryl. Usyk gave below par performances to suck AJ into a false sense of belief. Is there not some master plan here to allow Wilder to become? I don't think so. I don't know, man. I don't think Usyk. Do you think that, Laurie? Do you think Usyk gave below par performances to?
No, listen, man, I think
Experience.
stars
They're too
make
experienced
fights.
for that
Yeah,
at this
stars
stage.
make.
I don't think that will work on. And plus, AJ's got stuff he needs to work on with Derek James. I don't
Because
think that.
I can remember when, sorry to interrupt, but I can remember when Usyk fought Joshua, a lot of people were saying that Joshua would be too big, too strong, and punch too hard for him. And a lot of the reasons they were basing that on was because, let's be honest, prior to that fight with Joshua, Usyk had had 3 heavyweight fights, and he fought Chaz Witherspoon, he fought Chisora. Was it 2 or 3 years? But anyway, I know he fought Chaz Witherspoon. He won, didn't overly impress. Against Chisora, he won, but he didn't overly impress. I mean, there were some people out there that were saying it was a close fight. You know what I mean? So then he goes and takes on Joshua, and everyone's saying, nah, man, Joshua bigger, stronger. Look at the power Joshua's got, man. Once Joshua lands that shot, man, once Usyk feels the power, it's all... What happened?
Mm.
And maybe Joshua in the first fight bought into a little bit of that. And then all of a sudden you get in the ring with a guy and you realize, actually, it's not as easy as I thought.
Mm.
So, as I said before, man, confidence can be a two-way street. Yes, it's good to have confidence, but you could argue being overconfident is just as bad as being not confident enough.
Harvey says here, overconfident is worse, but when paired with the style of AJ and Wilder's needed to beat one another, AJ being underconfident is worse than Wilder being overconfident. AJ's underconfidence will be worse for him than Deontay Wilder's overconfidence will be for him in that matchup, if that makes sense. So do you get what he's saying there?
Yeah, I do get what you're saying. I'm just throwing that out there. But, listen, overconfidence is a real thing in sports, not just in boxing. Many a sportsman, off the back of a loss, they've admitted years later, or maybe even straight away, they've said, you know what? I was too overconfident, man. I went in there thinking all I needed to do was this and I would win, and it didn't happen for me. How many times have we seen that in upsets over the years? A lot of the times it's attributed to the favourite being overconfident or thinking, he didn't have too much to worry about. And then all of a sudden, they've had the tables turned on them. So
let's see.
I do think that there are ways for AJ to win this fight. If it was to go to points, it's a no-brainer that AJ would win because he's by far the better boxer. I think even Wilder's most ardent fans would have to admit that AJ's a way better boxer than Wilder is. I mean, we've only got to look at their amateur records. You had AJ, who was getting to the finals or semi-finals of World Championships. He won the Olympic gold medal. To be fair to Wilder, he started boxing quite late, and I know he won a bronze medal at the 2008 Olympics. But if you look at his style, man, he's never been a good boxer. He's never really knuckled down and worked on that side of his game because he's always thought to himself, well, why would I need to do that when if I land my right hand, it's all over?
Mm. DS is saying here, as much as Wilder is capable of turning a man's lights out, I can see AJ keeping out of range, breaking him down with a jab and stopping Wilder between round 7 and 9. London Brixton says here, DS, I'm with you on that. Big up my man Boxing Hub in the chat. He's put big up. I just joined. Got a great Instagram account there, iBoxing Hub. Shout out to you, bro. I know we need.
Yeah, big him up.
Sure, yeah. Harvey says here, this is Harvey, you know what? This fight right here, man, I have to say, I don't know what you feel about this, Laurie, but for me right now, it's not the biggest fight out there. It's not the best fight out there. But for me personally, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it's one of the most intriguing fights out there. Number one, it's a heavyweight fight. And like I said, everyone loves the heavyweights. And the reason why we love the heavyweights is because in a blink of an eye, man, your lights can get... I mean, look at that fight on Saturday as a perfect example. just as everyone was starting to think, oh, come on, AJ, man, you know what I mean? This is going on way too long now. I was saying that myself. I was shouting at the screen, AJ, back him up to the ropes, double jab, come over the top with the right hand. The first time he did that in the seventh round, bang, the fight's over. And the way it was so conclusive is if you saw that in its in just that in isolation, you would have thought, yeah, man, AJ smoked it. But then in the lead up to that, he was less than impressive. I would agree with that. You know what I mean? That is heavyweight boxing. And that is the division where that happens more so in any other division in boxing, isn't it? You're more
Yeah.
likely to see that in the heavyweights than any other division in boxing. That sort of instant finish like that.
Mm. Ian says here, AJ, as Laurie says, has a better trainer. There's elements of James reminding me of Manny Stewart. He talks to AJ during introductions. James can come up with the game plan to beat Wilder.
Absolutely. And I'll throw you two names out there, guys who changed their styles. People said that they were tentative and they weren't that exciting. I could give you two
I know who you're
names.
going to say. I know one of them. Anyway.
Yeah, one of them is one of my favorite all-time fighters, Lennox Lewis. Well, after he got knocked out by Rackman, his style changed. He was less aggressive. He would basically break man up with a jab, right? And then when you were ready to go, he would finish you off. And he was very good at finishing as well, by the way. Probably better than AJ, to be honest. But that's what he would do. Similarly, Vladimir Klitschko. And what did both of those guys have in common? They were trained by the great Emmanuel Stewart. You know what I mean? Guys that were not known for having the best chins. I mean, if you look at Vladimir Klitschko's early career, he got stopped by a journeyman called Ross Purity.
Yeah, I remember.
Do you remember that? You know what I mean? And he had to remodel his style where he became more defensively savvy, more defensively responsible. It made him less exciting. People said, yeah, he's tentative, he's scared to get hit, blah, blah, blah. But it was very difficult to beat him. And the reason why is because allied to being better defensively, he could punch. And I think Joshua comes into that same category as Lennox and Klitschko. And I'm not saying he's as good as those two. Certainly, he's definitely not as good as Lennox, right? But you see where I'm going with this, don't you? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You can, if you are well coached, right, and you develop your defensive side of your game, you can win fights by that alone. By being defensively savvy, anticipating, putting the guard up, nullifying the guy, and then when you get your opportunity, you take it.
Mohammed says here, Daryl, you're saying you don't see AJ getting out the first 3 or 4 rounds, but Ortiz got to the seventh round, he did, and so did many other fighters. Yeah, they did.
Yep.
But one thing I will say, Mohammed, from that is that maybe I'm basing it on recency bias. Maybe I'm basing it on that. But the last couple of fights, maybe it was down to Fury, but the last couple of fights I've seen Wilder in, beyond those first 3 to 4 rounds, he looked really leggy, particularly in that third fight with Fury. He looked leggy. It looked like his feet were stuck in sand. He didn't look like that against Ortiz after the first 3 or 4 rounds. So that's why I say if AJ can get out of those rounds, he's got a great chance. But yeah, I'm just worried about AJ getting caught early. And with somebody that confidence is low already, and you get caught, let's say you get dropped. Let's say you have a great first round, AJ did. You know, he backed Wilder up, jabbed him, backing him up on the ropes, 10 seconds left, goes for the right, gets caught with a counter, drops. How's AJ's confidence going to be in that second round, third round, fourth round? Wilder will come at him. That's just why I'm just not sure, man. Like I want AJ to win, believe it or not, but I just am worried. Them first 3 or 4 rounds are going to be hell.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. If you're an AJ fan, you're right to express concern and worry because you're talking about Wilder as one of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight history, isn't he? Let's be honest. But what I'm also saying is that as good as he is with that right hand, he's as bad defensively. And you said a true thing when you said if you look at his recent fights, man, the legs are not there. Even go back and listen, anyone watching this, right? Go and look at that fight of Elenius in that first round, the way that Deontay Wilder's legs look in that fight. Yes, he got Elenius out of there with a picture perfect right hand over the top as Elenius was coming in. By the way, Elenius was being very aggressive, made a mistake. What happened? Walked straight into a right hand and got clocked. So that's what I'm saying with Joshua. Him being circumspect, especially early, is a wise move for me because the one thing you don't want to do, man, is just offer it on a plate to Deontay because he will definitely take it. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is tuck up, be defensively responsible with the high guard. You got to anticipate. You got to be watchful. You got to move to the opposite direction of where you think the right hand's coming, right? Not giving too much leverage as well on his punches. It's not impossible that he can get out of those early rounds. It's not impossible at all. And I'm saying that the difference between AJ and the likes of Ortiz, Gerald Washington, after Spilica, and some of the other guys that have fought Wilder and won rounds is that whereas they were able to win rounds, they weren't able to punish Wilder the way Joshua is capable of punishing it. And that's the difference.
I'll tell you what, man. I've seen some of you guys say the same thing. Ian, I saw your comment there as well. Like, I'm really pumped up for this fight now, man. I really hope it happens. Obviously, the update that we got after Joshua and Helenius, Joshua didn't say nothing in the ring, but he did address the fight in the press conference. And Eddie Hearn basically said that they're looking to finalize that deal now with the Saudis for December, January. So history has told us not to get too excited too early until there's an announcement. And we've had that history, particularly with this fight, where it hasn't been put over the line. But I really hope that we can cap off a brilliant year for boxing with a fight like that. Because like I said, it's not the biggest fight in boxing right now. It's not the most significant. But I think as a fun fight, one fight that we've always wanted to see, and maybe you could tell me why, but the appeal, what is the big appeal on this? Is it the fact that both can turn each other's lights out? Is it
Both.
the personalities? Is it the UK US thing? Like, what? There is such a big appeal on this fight.
There's so many intangibles about this fight. They're heavyweights. It's America versus the UK. It's the puncher versus the boxer kind of thing, but the boxer can punch as well. It's the fact that the characters are very different. AJ's got a very different character to the audacious and loud and verbose Wilder, you know what I mean? So that makes for good copy. It's just, you know what I mean? It's the perfect sell. You know what I mean? It's the perfect sell. Everyone's going to want to watch that fight, man, because you know that it could end at any given moment, especially with a guy like Wilder. AJ could be battering him around the ring, and if he's not taking him out, Wilder could just land that shot from nowhere and just turn AJ's lights out. But what I'm saying to you is, I think AJ has a very good chance of winning if he gets his tactics right. And yes, he has got to show some belief and some confidence. But to me, the keys to victory are to A, get himself into great conditioning, because in order to take punches, that is part of it. You need to be a very conditioned athlete. Secondly, you've got to work on your game plan, get your tactics right? Try and nullify the power. And what I'm saying is, you go in the ring with those tactics in place, opportunities will definitely present itself, particularly if you can get out the first 3 or 4 rounds wherein Wilder's is at his most dangerous.
Yeah, got some great points here, and I've got 2 questions that I'm going to ask. That's come from DS and Harvey. JD makes a great point as well. He says if Wilder feels AJ's power early, like he felt Fury's, that will change his confidence. Are people not talking about that? You know what I mean? But DS has said here, Laurie, if AJ is to win, will it be a straight right, left hook, or uppercut?
Well, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that in my humble opinion, AJ has more tools to win than Wilder is. Wilder has the legendary right hand, yes. But I'm not really seeing him throw that much in the way of left hooks or uppercuts and stuff like that. Whereas we've seen AJ take man out with uppercut. He took Dillian out with the uppercut. You know what I mean? Picture perfect left hook took him out. He took out.
That AJ still exist? Does that AJ still exist?
Listen, man, he can punch. And when you can punch, it does exist. You know what I mean? We've seen him take guys out with different punches, with different combinations. So we know he's got it in him. Obviously, he'll have to bring that out on the night. But listen, man, don't anyone that's writing AJ out, you're doing so at your peril. Trust me, because I'm telling you now.
What punch does it for you? What punch do you think will do it for you? As DS saying here,
I'm saying the left hook. I'm saying the left hook. Yeah,
left hook counter.
Yeah. It could be a catch and shoot. It could be him working Wilder to the ropes, throwing a jab right, and then Wilder's there for the left hook. Bang! It could be a counter shot. It could be a body shot. You know what I mean? Wilder's shown he got knocked down to the body by Fury, didn't he? Remember that in the second fight? He's far from invulnerable, man. Trust me, he's far from that. You know, as much as I respect him as a puncher, and I do like Deontay Wilder as well. I do like him as a personality. He is good for the game, but as I said before, he has his failings, man. And I think AJ can capitalize on that. And I think he's got more than one way to win this fight. And you know what
But
they say, in boxing, they always say a good boxer will always beat a puncher. You
uh,
must have heard that saying.
yeah, I have heard that saying.
I mean, and in my view, AJ is much the better boxer of the two. It's not even close, actually, when it comes to boxing.
Harvey says here, speaking on confidence, are you guys confident that it gets signed? Like, I don't want to get my hopes up too much, man, and I really hope it does. But yeah, I think it will because the Saudis are involved and they've got a real, genuine interest in this. There's not the same politics as there were a few years ago when they were discussing this. The Saudis have put the money up. They've agreed a neutral venue. The money appears to be there. Both fighters appear to want it. So what can really, and definitely something can, right? But like, yeah, I think that the Wilder team really want it. Eddie Hearn has basically backed himself into a corner now, so they've got to have it. I think they want it as well. So yeah,
Listen,
I'm
man, it's
yeah,
the laws of attraction.
I'm gonna
These
say
two have
yeah.
to fight one another.
I'm gonna
And
say
I'll
yeah.
tell you what else as well. The only slight thing I
AJ's
seen,
never ducked anyone either, by the way. So he'll
yeah,
be
I
fine.
think the only slight thing that could get in the way is that I think there is a possibility that AJ might take another fight. They might feel he's not quite ready yet, and even Wilder, like we said, he's not fought for close to 2 years. You know what I mean? He might want to. He's only had one round of action in the last couple of years. He might feel it necessary
I
to
think AJ,
have another fight. The fact that he's
I
not
think
even
he's got to
talking
take it
about it.
now.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, right? The fact that he's not even thinking or talking like that, again, suggests to me overconfidence. Because surely you would want to get back in the ring and shake off some ring rust. But he's probably thinking, no, I don't need it. So that's what I'm saying. He doesn't have any respect for AJ, and that could be his undoing.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens, man. We've reached the hour mark, so I know we're near the end. But before we get to the end of the show, I do want to touch on briefly the undercard. So let's talk about first of all Chisora and the fact that he might fight three more times before we wrap it up. So we don't have to be a long segment. But your thoughts on the undercard? Hergovich didn't look that great to me. I'm not seeing this boogeyman talk. I said that with the Zhang fight. You said it as well. I don't know where this boogeyman tag has come from with Hergovich. Chisora, for me, as Eddie Hearn said in the presser, he needs to really retire. He'd like to see him go out on a win, but Chisora shut that down pretty quickly and said he's got three more in him. He wants to get to 50. So I don't know who he fights next. He's looking worse every fight, in my opinion. But if they pick the right opponent, he can get to 50. So your thoughts on that? The undercard, Hergovich, everything else.
Yeah, I mean, with Derek, listen, man, he is going to fight three more times. You've got a lot of people around him telling him to retire, but he seems insistent on fighting on. He's going to fight on, isn't he? Especially if he's winning. I mean, he did win the fight on Saturday. He did come through some pretty dodgy moments. I think he was down on the cards earlier on, but then, as a lot of us, myself included, predicted would happen, that Gerald Washington would virtually stop fighting after a certain time in the fight. That's exactly what happened. And Chisora was able to, come through and win. Wasn't convincing, but he did deserve the win, to be honest. And listen, he said he's going to fight on as long as he passes his medicals. He's going to fight. So I would imagine they'll try and look after him, try and get him an opponent. But maybe not whilst a complete walk in the park. He's not going to be anyone too stern or hit too hard. So, you know what I mean? I just hope they look after him, man, because he is going to fight on.
Mm.
Two, Hergovich wasn't very impressive. I mean, it made me laugh, mate. Really, I was speaking to you, when I was saying
Yeah.
all these people who claim they know about boxing. Oh, I bet you AJ would never go near Hergovich. I bet. Come on, bro. Listen, why would Hergovich have wanted to go near AJ for a start?
Mm.
And when you saw him fight on Saturday, does that look like a man that you think could beat AJ? Come on, man. I mean, he was struggling with Dempsey McKee, and after about 8 rounds, that fight was even.
Mm.
You know what I mean? He didn't look very impressive at all. Second one on the bounce now, he didn't look impressive against Zhang. A lot of people thought that Zhang beat him. Listen,
Including me.
Ergovich is a decent fighter, man, but he's by no means a boogeyman. And yes, he won on Saturday. He's got I think he secured himself a shot at the IBF title, but is he going to win a world title? I doubt that. I
Mm.
doubt that very much. And listen, he's not this boogeyman that a lot of people were portraying him to be. And I think you saw further evidence of that on Saturday night. So when people were saying, "Oh, I'll tell you what, there's no way AJ will want to get in there with Ergovic because, come on, bro. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Come on." But
Johnny
anyway,
Fisher.
yeah, that was that. Johnny Fisher looked decent on the undercard.
Yeah.
As I said, it's always good to monitor prospects as they're coming up. He won his first title. He looked good. A lot of people were expecting a very competitive fight, but let's be honest, man, it was pretty one-sided in the end, and he won well. So he goes onwards and upwards. Big ticket seller, one of the biggest ticket sellers in the country at the moment. So yeah, I look forward to seeing his next fight and seeing how they step him up and develop him.
Matthew Hatton was on the undercard. He fought a guy. Shout out to him, Anto. He frequents a gym near where I am in Hitchin, I believe. So shout out to
I
him,
didn't
man.
see that fight, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. Actually, I missed it. But I know obviously Matthew Hatton won the fight. But again, a lot of criticism coming Matthew Hatton's way. I didn't see the performance to really give my opinion on it. But yeah, not
I
Matthew.
do feel a bit sorry for Matthew Hatton because he's one of those guys. He's the
Lose, lose,
son,
isn't it? Mm.
yeah, son of a famous fighter, very famous fighter, Ricky Hatton. He's never going to be as good as his dad. He's not as good as his dad, and then people are going to constantly compare him. He needs to develop in his own right. I mean, let's be brutally honest, man. If he wins a Central Area title, he would have been doing quite well. He's
Yeah,
just not as good as his dad. People just need to let it go, man. You know, I mean, he's got the same surname, but he's not as good as his dad. Nowhere near it. So that's how I
yeah,
tend to look at that. I mean, yes, he benefits from that in a way that, his name is out there, he's able to get fights. But there's the other side to that where people got this expectation of him that he's just going to go and bludgeon guys just because his surname is Hatton. Boxing doesn't work like that. So, listen, man, I wish him all the best for the future. But I would say that, as I said before, if he wins an area title, he's probably overachieved. And I'm just
yeah,
keeping it 100.
yeah. I agree. It's going to be difficult, and we've seen the pressure that a lot of the Suns carry with the surname. Eubank Jr. being one, Conor Benn being another one. There's a long line in history of fighters that have taken after their dad, and they've had the pressure of living up to the expectations. Campbell Hatton, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Mohammed. Boxing Hub here says Campbell Hatton has had 13 fights in 28 months. Harvey says he agrees with you with regards to Campbell Hatton. But yeah, I'm thinking of Tim Zhu, who actually is doing really well. He's stepping into his own, and he had to follow in, his dad's footsteps. So there are examples, but yeah, the expectations with Campbell Hatton were always low because he didn't have a distinguished amateur career. So you're going to have to be moved slowly. Same with Conor Benn, and it worked out for him. So I personally don't, from what I've seen so far, I think that the ceiling looks even lower for Campbell Hatton than it did with Conor Benn, but they're going to take their time at the end of the day. And I just think that's really all I can say about it.
Well, Nigel Benn has two sons that are professional boxers. There's Conor Benn and there's Harley. Now, if you've ever seen Harley, no disrespect, but he's not very good. So it just
Mm.
goes to show, just because you got a famous surname from your dad, it doesn't guarantee you anything. And yes, you quite rightly mentioned the example of Tim Zhu. He has another brother as well, Nikita. He's half decent as well, actually. But
Yeah,
both of those guys are not as good as their dad. Even though Tim Zhu's a very good fighter, he's not as good as his
not
dad.
as good as Foster to
You know what
that.
I mean? I mean, we had an example over the weekend on the undercard of the what's his name, the Navarrete versus Valdez fight with Fernando Vargas' son, Emiliano. He looks good.
Yeah,
He looked decent. Had a good stoppage win, but he's not as good as his dad. You know what I mean? So, really, do you find that, to be honest?
yeah,
But then, Floyd Mayweather comes from a fighting family and he was way better than his dad. So I don't know, man. I think it's how God dishes out the genes, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But hey, it is what it is.
I think, I know I said we were going to go, but I think it is worth touching on that fight there. We can't go through the whole show without talking about, because we didn't really touch on it in the preview show either. So just Navarrete's unanimous points win over Oscar Valdez. I think knowing you, you would have been happy with that result,
I
but it
was.
was a very good fight, you know.
Yeah, listen, man. I mean, I've said it on your show before. I'm not a fan of Oscar Valdez. As far as I'm concerned, the man's a drugs cheat. I think what he did, or what he's allowed to get away with when he fought Robson Conceicao a few fights before this, I thought that was disgraceful. And he didn't really show any remorse for that. Kept trying to say that he didn't knowingly take drugs. And just the way that whole thing was handled, they had to fight when he shouldn't have fought because he failed the test. They somehow circumvented the rules. They
It's
had the
very
fight, and
funny.
even though they had the fight, Conceicao won that fight, and they robbed. You know what I mean? That left a really bad taste in my mouth. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never been a fan of Valdez since that. Maybe I mean, I've made it too personal with him. But I was glad that Navarrete won. I picked Navarrete to win. I thought Navarrete would win. I thought he'd be too busy for Valdez, and I was proven right. And he did kind of put a bit of a beating on
No,
Valdez. You know what I mean?
terrible.
And listen, man, I'm not saying I wanted to see him get beaten up like that with his eye all puffed up and everything. But I was glad that Navarrete won, and I'm definitely not a fan of Oscar Valdez or indeed Eddie Reynoso. And I'll touch on that next time because we ain't got time for all that. But yeah, I'm not a fan of either Oscar Valdez or Eddie Reynoso.
Just one last thing. Shakur Stevenson said he would welcome a catchweight fight with Navarrete. Obviously, Shakur Stevenson is aiming to challenge for the lightweight title. Yeah, Boxing Hub, you got me there. Yeah, I was going to say it anyway. But yeah, Shakur Stevenson wants a piece of him. He's obviously aiming for the lightweight title, first of all. Then he said he would look at a catchweight fight with him. I don't see it happening personally, but what do you think about that?
You know what? Shakur Stevens calling out everyone at the moment, but the only person he hasn't called out recently has been AJ and Wilder. But listen, man, Shakur Stevenson's a hell of a fighter. You would expect him to beat the likes of Navarrete, but Navarrete would give him a good argument.
Mm.
I mean, because he's unorthodox. He throws a lot of punches. He's very tough, and those types of fighters can make it difficult for your pure boxers like Shakur Stevenson. But I think Shakur Stevenson, although I don't agree with some of the stuff he does out the ring and some of the things that comes out of his mouth, he looks to be, all intents and purposes, a special generational talent. So you would have to favour him, certainly against a guy like Navarrete. But it would be a decent fight. It would be.
For sure. Well, listen, guys, that wraps it up for today, man. Absolutely
Get
fantastic.
your money on AJ.
Really pushing that AJ. Listen, man, I am so pumped up for this fight. I really want it. I really want this fight now, man. I really hope it gets over the line. Let's continue this great year of boxing, man, because the fans win this one. Do you know what I mean? This will be another great fight for the boxing fans. Like I said, it's not the most significant fight out there. It's probably not as big as it would have been a few years ago. But for me and for a lot of people here, it seems as well, there is still a demand for it. And
Hey, listen, it's one of the biggest fights in boxing.
it's made. Yeah.
And when AJ wins, listen, remember, you heard it here. I told you, you can play back this video and you'll be able to hear all that I got everything right. I'll try to be humble though. I'll try not to be too arrogant, and I'll just accept the plaudits as they come.
What would you rather watch, AJ Wilder or Usyk Fury on the same night and same time? What would you rather watch according to
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. That fight would be better than.
Honest, or
Say that again. AJ Wilder or Usyk Fury
on the same night at the same time? What would you watch?
Whoa.
I know what means
AJ
more.
Wilder.
Yeah, I know what means more. Like obviously the undisputed heavyweight championship, right?
Yeah.
Me from a purely entertainment perspective, yeah, let's say AJ and Wilder, man.
And listen, Usyk Fury would obviously mean more, and that's a great fight.
Means a lot more, obviously.
That's a great fight, but in terms of intrigue and excitement, and you know what I mean, just sheer entertainment, I think that Wilder versus AJ has everything he would want.
Mm. Well, shout out to everybody, man. Hit that like button on the way out. Listen, great comments, a lot of positivity from everyone today. Thank you all for tuning in, taking some time out to, tune in with us and talk boxing, man. Like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go follow my guy, iBoxing Hub. He's got a great boxing account over there on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next week, man. Thank you all for joining. and we'll see you all very soon. Peace out.